Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Simply Growing Food Podcast. I'm your host, Dillon. Today I sit down with environmental scientist Kyle. He comes by the farm to educate me on all things green energy and not green energy, to say the least. I will say the audio is trash coming up. I've had some technical difficulties, so bear with me. This is going to be a 3-part podcast. We're going to have 3 different episodes released. The original interview is over an hour and a half. But that's because it was good and informative. That's what's coming up on the SGF. Stay tuned. All right, and we are back with another episode of the Simply Growing Food Podcast. I'm sitting down with our guest, Kyle. How's it going today, Kyle?
Hey, going well. How are you doing?
Pretty good. I just wanted to start with asking you, how did you hear about us, and like when? Because I think you started buying from us this year.
Yeah. It was 2024. Started buying from you guys. Moved back to Brooklyn right around 2022. Was really looking for, a local farm that had some options to be able to just buy some produce from.
Yeah.
Couldn't really find anything. Looking online, just driving around trying to find some farms and everything. Couldn't really find anything that had real produce other than just eggs. One day I'm on the Residents of Brooklyn, Connecticut Facebook group. Someone asked a very similar question and dropped her link on there. Checked out the website, and it was exactly what we were looking for. You guys had the lettuce already, you had the potatoes, you had the onions, you had, everything that we were looking for that we buy on a weekly basis anyways.
Staple crops.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, we started off just getting a couple orders delivered to our house, and then you had the CSA program, and it really just went from there. So, fortunately, every week we get a nice delivery.
Yeah.
So you guys got it hooked up real well. We really appreciate everything that you guys do over here.
Hey, we appreciate the support. And what does it say on your garage?
It is what it is.
It is. I like that. What made you? So you moved back to Brooklyn. Where were you?
So I owned a house in Rhode Island for a little bit.
Okay.
I had a job that was east of Providence over in Massachusetts. I was out there for about 10 years. So I lived in Providence for a few years in an apartment. And then when my wife and I were engaged, we actually bought a house over in Lincoln, Rhode Island. So
nice.
But grew up in Danielson, and then I actually accepted a job offer down in South Windsor, Connecticut. So, we got to move back home, start our family, and still have all of that local family support and everything. So it's been working out really, really well.
And you're an environmental engineer?
Environmental scientist.
Environmental scientist?
Yeah.
Both sound very technical. So are you working out of South Windsor now?
I actually moved our office to Glastonbury.
Gotcha. Okay.
So my company is a national company, and we're always backed by a PE firm. So right now we're backed by Morgan Stanley. So we just go out and we buy other smaller companies that are kind of local to certain places. So for us, we had 2 offices in Connecticut. Didn't really make too much sense on the books. So I combined our offices and we moved to Glastonbury.
And it's been good?
It's been fantastic.
Yeah.
So basically, our office went from probably about 12 people when I started, and now our division, including the other offices in New England, we're over 100.
Wow, that's pretty good. Jeez. So why were you looking for fresh food, I guess? Like, what was there something specific that made you want to buy local food, or were you always buying local food? Did you grow up doing it? I mean, what was the thing?
Yeah, not really. So growing up, I was very fortunate. My parents are actually big into just eating really well. So every single night we had a really good meal. You know, we had chicken, vegetable, and another side pretty much every night. You know, we always got brought up very fortunate that way. But, you know, I was still brought up with Kool-Aid and Nesquik and all of that. You know, it was typical,
Nice.
you know, Subway, like especially when I was in high school and trying to gain weight for football. You know, it was eating Subway before dinner, you know, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And you would think it was healthy, but it really wasn't.
Well, the bread isn't considered bread around the world, right? Like nutritional standards, it's only bread in America. So
Exactly.
figure that out.
Yeah, so, you know, when we got back here, you know, I think I was just at the point in my career and just seeing so many things on the environmental side when it came to some of the farms that we were either cleaning up or, you know, just kind of working with. It really opened my eyes, you know, and we can get into some of the specifics on some of the chemicals. You know, just some of the farming practices just really made me nervous about some of the contaminants that a lot of these foods can really uptake.
Yeah.
And then you start talking about you know, some of the growth hormones and pharmaceuticals that they're pumping into animals. You know, a chicken breast nowadays is probably twice the size of a chicken breast was, you know, when I was growing up. So, you know, it just made me a little nervous. And I've got a 1-year-old at home, so...
It seems to be a big, I was just talking about it on the last show, the demographic we've seen a huge uptick in is like late 20s to 40, coming into the stand, young families, they're concerned about, you know, what they're feeding their kids, and it's kind of the first time they've thought about what they're even eating.
Right.
It's like having the kid, and you're like, oh, wait a second, like, I should give it the best, but you never gave yourself the best.
Right.
You know, it's great. Because I don't think it's ever too late to, like, change your metabolic situation. And that's all based on what you're eating. You know?
Right.
So that's great. You're in that demographic. Like, we met you. You're in that same, like, we got a family going. Actually, I've always had home-cooked meals. I care about what I'm eating, you know, and you want to have a healthy kid.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And that seems to be the best way to get it going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some of the other things, like in the industry that I work in, I was traveling a decent amount, and it was all within New England. It wasn't, you know, too far. But I was eating a lot of fast food type stuff, and I was putting sandwiches in plastic bags and just taking them out to places. And even when I was in the office, because I wasn't prepared to bring a meal in, you know, I was eating Chili's, you know, for lunch 4 days a week.
Right.
So, you know, I went through a spell where I gained some weight.
Sure.
People typically do. Didn't feel so good either for, you know, a little while there. So then, you know, I lost, I don't know, probably 20 pounds in about a 6-month span without even exercising. It really just came down to, like, eating a normal lunch.
Yeah.
Not having 5 beers with lunch probably helped as well. But, you know, just simple little things, like instead of having that burger and fries, like, you know, I was eating a salad with chicken, and it tasted fantastic.
Right.
You know, it's not like it was a taste type thing. It was just being prepared for that, which I really wasn't before.
Right. Yeah, that's pretty interesting too. Well, like I said, hey, it's never too late, you know. And you're not alone. We have a couple that comes in every week, and they were like long haul truck drivers, both of them, and they would eat similarly, you know, just on the go all the time. And they gained a bunch of weight. And, you know, because of their lifestyle, they couldn't really work out because they're always working, you know. So they just changed what they were eating. So instead of having a burger, they had like a piece of a sirloin steak, you know, and that was it. They both lost like a collective over 100 pounds together. Wow. And I was like, damn, guys. And so they come to us every week. Like, they taught themselves the power of eating real food that isn't laden with God knows what.
Right.
God knows what, man.
And they're probably more attentive. They feel better, like, especially when you start gaining that weight and you're eating that greasy food all the time. I'll tell you right now, I used to sit with a bottle of Tums in my desk every single day. I had a bottle in my car. I had a bottle next to my bed. You know, I don't have that anymore. It really just came down to just eating better. See, that's it.
That's friggin' awesome. That's friggin' awesome. You're not alone. You know, but people, they'll go their whole life with those bottles of Tums everywhere and never think or never even try to question, why am I eating all these Tums?
Right.
They're just eating the Tums. Because it takes the problem away.
Yeah.
You know, but that's not the cost. You know, it's good for you. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I'm going to get into it with a couple of my questions. And this is really just about you. Do you have any hobbies?
Oh, I have a ton of hobbies. I have too many hobbies, some people say.
Give me like the top 3.
Oh, man. So golf. I mean, I'm a member at Quintitissit.
Nice.
So, you know, I'm probably there. Well, before the kid, I was probably there 3 days a week. Now I'm probably down to 1.
Hey, you still got the 1 down.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I golf a ton. Fortunately, I get to golf with work as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Which is fantastic.
Yeah.
So that always works out well. You know, I also snowboard a decent amount.
Okay.
So all growing up, you know, we went from the Walmart tie-dye snowboards to you know, having season passes at Mount Snow through college and then after college. So that was a lot of fun. And then, you know, I would probably say even traveling now. You know, my wife is a big traveler. She's had a passport since she was a little kid, so she's been like everywhere over the world. She's taken me to Europe a couple times. That was another thing that really opened my eyes to some of the food, because you know, you go overseas to Europe and you eat your face like in Italy with all the pasta, and you don't feel bad after. And you're actually hungry after too. So
Right.
So yeah, traveling's been great. It's really opened my eyes to a bunch of different things, you know, coming from a small town like this.
You know, I wish, well, Cass and I have been talking about, we were going to take a trip this month and like go like to Utah and learn to ski. We've since changed course, and we think we're going to save more money and try to go abroad this time next year. And I've been to Italy, but I was way too young to appreciate a single freaking thing.
Right.
Especially the food. I will say though, I went with a class, high school, and the food sucked. The food they fed us at all the hotels and stuff, they were like, let's feed them American food.
Oh no.
And I mean, like, American food sucks because we're eating like pre-breaded chicken tenders and French fries at this old, I'll never forget it, this beautiful old like sub-level eatery, we'll call it, cafe, I don't know, in Rome. And we're going in there, we're thinking this is going to be a great, authentic Italian meal, and we had pizza, which wasn't like Italian pizza.
Oh no.
It was like American pizza, and then we had chicken nuggets and fries.
Oh, that's awful.
And they were the saltiest fries I've ever had in my life. I feel like, because they just don't understand us, we don't understand them, you know, whatever, let's salt these bad boys up. It was just like, ugh. I will say a few places we went were really good. But you had to go for lunch. If it was part of the itinerary, no. No. You had to go on your own to a different restaurant. More money, but worth it.
And it all depends on where you go. Like, so my wife and I, we did our honeymoon on the Amalfi Coast, so we went to 3 separate towns down there. And just walking around the towns, not even having reservations anywhere. You know, we were stumbling upon Michelin star restaurants for lunch.
Imagine that.
And no wait, no nothing. And, you know, we just walk in, and for the entire lunch, which included wine, appetizer, meals, and everything, it was like 50 euros. Which, yes, that's kind of an expensive lunch, but when you talk about a Michelin star type restaurant.
Yeah, triple it here.
Exactly.
Triple that here.
Exactly. And then, you know, we found a couple other places. You know, the table wine was 50 cents a glass.
I was going to say, you were telling me something about the wine over there, right?
Oh, yes.
Talk about that a little bit.
All right. So Italian wine, they have 2 different certifications, and they have these wraps that go around the neck of the bottle. DOC is a blue label, and then DOCG is kind of like a lighter brown and white label.
Okay.
Those are certified by the government to be very organic. So we actually went to one of the wineries that was DOCG certified.
Okay.
To get this certification, because I believe it's only 10% of the wineries in Italy get this certification, which you think about all the wineries in Italy, there's a
seems pretty niche.
It's small. You know, to get this certification, they're not even allowed to irrigate their grapes.
Whoa.
So it is just grapes grown on the land.
Wow.
With a person trimming them, and that's it.
So no human intervention other than pruning.
Correct.
That's amazing.
So, there's no pesticides, there's no herbicides, there's no...
There's no water.
Right.
There's no friggin' irrigation.
Right.
Holy crap.
So the best grapes that we were finding, and the best ones were grown in volcanic ash. And they were grapes.
They stress.
Correct.
Yeah. I mean, that's the same with some vegetables, so that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So you were also telling me that it was cheap.
Very.
Like a bottle of that kind of wine, untouched grape, was cheaper than conventional?
Absolutely. You can go to some of the liquor stores around here.
Can you get that here?
Yes.
Really?
You can get DOC certified Italian wines and DOCG in America. So, I know the owners over at B's Liquor Store.
Sure.
Right here in Brooklyn, and you just go in there, look at the Italians, and they'll have that certification on there. So you can get bottles for $10, $11, $12 here.
Really?
You're not talking about a $40 bottle of wine. Yeah.
And I'm gonna just guess there's none, right? No phosphates, nitrates, sulfates.
I think the sulfates and everything, they might add that in there when they ship it overseas, because you might need that.
To be sold in the American economy.
Right.
Market. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know too much about that, but
we probably make them.
Yeah. But I will tell you, it's fantastic. And I think it's great that you can still get it for a very competitive price around here.
Yeah, $10 a bottle is decent.
Yeah.
For something that's that kind of quality.
Right.
Wow. So, like we were just saying, you were going to make wine?
Yeah.
Tell me that one more time.
Yeah,
so you wanted to make wine.
Right. So at my house, there's a ton of wild grapes that kind of grow over this fence in my backyard and everything. So, when we started noticing it, the first thing that popped into my mind was wine. Of course, naturally, it's not jelly, it's wine, because I like wine.
More use out of it.
Exactly. I did talk about the 5 beers during lunch, so I like wine too. I clipped all of the grapes, but it was poor timing with our honeymoon. So the way that it would have worked, the grapes would have went bad by the time that we got back. We weren't going to be home to be able to mix it or anything like that. So,
sure.
But I have all this stuff. Definitely want to try some wild grape wine.
Yeah.
Just to try it out, because even if it comes out bad, it's really not a big deal. It's an afternoon.
Yeah, you still drink it, I'm sure.
Yeah,
because you made it.
Right. Exactly. and I like that stuff.
Yeah.
I like using my hands and trying new stuff and learning and everything.
Yeah.
So it'd be pretty interesting.
You were saying you made kombucha?
Yeah.
How long have you been doing that?
Oh, I did it for a few years. I actually started when I was living in Providence, probably 6 or 7 years ago. It worked out great. I mean, I really like the stuff at the store, but when you're talking about $5 a bottle, you go through a bottle in a day. It's more expensive than coffee a day if you're buying it out. And when I was living in Providence, that was the mac and cheese nights, because rent was pretty high at the time. So just making it at home. My mom used to do it all the time growing up. I thought it was.
She made kombucha.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
I thought it was this weird fungusy growing thing in the closet that I was scared of.
Because it is. Because that's what it is. But it's good for you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And especially back then, that's when I had a lot of the acid reflux and learning about, how kombucha can really help that. So instead of taking Veprosol every single day, I would try to drink some of that. And it really worked out.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's good to know. Tried kombucha. Tried some local kombucha. I can't get there yet, but maybe I'll find one that I can tolerate.
Yeah.
I was telling you that we've been making wine here on the farm, and I think I might have talked about it on the show before, but my dad's been making wine almost 40 years with his buddy, and we don't put anything in it. Back in the day when I was younger, we would make a whole event out of it, because it's a 2-week process. You'd get the grapes in from California, and then the next day after they acclimated to because all right, when they come off a cold truck, you don't want to press them cold. You don't want to crush them cold. You want to let them warm up to the air temperature and then go through it and press them. At least or crush them. At least that's what we did, or were instructed to do, or whatever. I kind of stepped on the scene mid wine operation as a kid because my dad was doing it a lot earlier than I was walking. So we would get like 60 to 70 cases of grapes and crush them all one weekend. And we have a crusher destemmer, so you just dump the whole thing in. It's just spinning, and it's crushing the grapes and juice are going down, and the stems are going another direction. And
Nice.
it was pretty cool. They didn't always have that machine. They only had a crusher for a long time. So then the stems and the grapes had to be picked out by a couple other people as everything was falling through. So as the wine got better, I think it inspired them to upgrade their stuff, not the other way around. Like, let's get better stuff so the wine's better. I think the wine just started getting better, and they were like, oh, maybe we should get a little bit more serious with this. So we still have the crusher destemmer. We don't crush and destem anymore because after COVID they stopped shipping, or we couldn't get grapes anymore for an affordable price or something like that. But they sell juice in 6-gallon pails of whatever variety grape you want. So that's what they started doing. They would buy juice in, put it in the barrels to ferment, or the demijohns, which is I think it's an 11-gallon or a 13-gallon giant glass ball, basically. I think it's 11. It's a weird number. And they would age them in that, or the oak barrels. But so anyway, crush one weekend, and then let it sit. And over that week, I can remember my dad. He would take the tops off all the barrels we were using just to let the air exchange, and then cover them back up. And the whole friggin' garage, and there's a tunnel that goes from the garage to the house. Everything smelled like grapes. Everything in the house smelled like grapes. The tunnel smelled like grapes. Everything smelled like grapes. So it was good. And on crushing day was the best because we would fill up just a pitcher of fresh grape juice.
Oh, yeah.
And that stuff was amazing.
Yeah.
You know, just like sweet, fresh, cold, primo. And then the week would go by, and then we would do pressing. And we have 2 old school hydraulic pump presses, like grape presses. It's a better day because people would show up. It's all day because you could crush 60 cases of grapes in like 2 hours.
Wow.
Maybe even less, honestly, because we just dump it. The machine's doing all the work. The following weekend is when everything gets scooped out with a ladle through all these vats of crushed grapes and slowly put into the presser, the press, and pressed and juiced and pressed. That takes forever. Normally by the time we were done, I think the most we ever did was like 180 gallons. I think the legal limit for private production, which nobody ever checks anyway, is 250. And that's for whiskey, moonshine, wine, beer, whatever you want to do. You can make up to 250 gallons. Don't quote me on it. Don't get arrested. But, or do, whatever. And, live free or die. I don't know. And just do it yourself. But, that was the most we ever made, so it was a lot. And then at the end of that, we were left with these giant purple cakes of grape skins and seeds and all that, and we'd feed them to the pigs.
Nice.
And the pigs friggin' loved it, because they were also kind of started to ferment. So there was some alcohol in there, and if we had pink pigs in the pen, they were purple by within 10-15 minutes, because they're rolling in it, they're eating it, and it was always good. I miss being able to feed them the grapes, but, we feed them all sorts of stuff now. But anyway, that's enough about wine. We're going to get back to environmental science here. Okay, your top 3 hobbies, all outdoors.
Yeah.
All outdoors, it seems like. It's always been that way for you.
I grew up playing a lot of sports, so especially in high school, too. I was a 3-sport athlete.
What'd you do?
So I was a starting quarterback for the team for 3 years.
Nice.
For 3 years, and also did track.
What was the best?
Oh, I love football.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. You still watch?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Nothing wrong with that, man. Hey, it's got you this far.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I had another question before we get into the science end of things is there any way that you can take your profession and do side jobs? Or is this like you got to have a career, you got to work for a firm or an agency or something? Like, is there a way you could apply environmental science to helping out a neighbor or helping out someone, a local business owner, and actually turning that into some dollars?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, a little bit of background about our field, especially because I'm an environmental consultant. So, I'm not out here looking at birds, bats, anything like that. Environmental is such a wide range of services.
It's everything, right?
I remember telling people I'm in the environmental field, and they would tell me to look at their septic. And
it's in the yard.
Yeah, like that's not the type of stuff that I do. Even I don't even do like residential drinking water wells or anything like that. So as a consultant, what we do is a lot more remediation type projects. So our clientele is typically larger businesses, contractors, financial institutions, stuff like that. So, to help people out, though, I do that on the side as it is, just when people come up with questions. One of the things that we do is home heating oil release type response.
Okay.
So, obviously, especially around here, most people have oil tanks in their houses. When those let go, you've got a reportable condition to either Connecticut DEP or Mass DEP if you're in Mass. A contractor comes in and does the physical cleanup of all the oil, and then we get involved because we actually kind of represent the DEP in a way.
Okay.
Because we have certain licenses, we have to know all the environmental regulations.
But you're still a private agency, company.
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
So, in this instance, the homeowner would actually hire us, and we represent the state. So we'll make sure that the remediation is done within the regulations, and then once it's all complete, we do a risk assessment for the actual residents of the house. So we'll make sure that any type of residue that's left over is not going to, reach certain cancer thresholds. And I say that, and it's not really a scary type situation. They're very, very conservative as it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of what we base a lot of our work on is cancer thresholds. So we'll be involved in some smaller remediation jobs like that. And I say smaller, and they can still cost $1 million because we might have to jack your house up and dig underneath it and everything. But those are kind of the smaller scale, local type of stuff that we do.
Is that the proper benchmark? Cancer? Opinion? Like, is that like what the industry should be measuring? Toxins or exposure on? Or is there another benchmark that would maybe make more sense over? I mean, what do you think about that? That's interesting when you say that. Like, we measure to cancer.
Right.
So, like, is that the most effective measurement?
It's probably not for everything. So, So when I say cancer thresholds, it's only for certain contaminants.
Okay.
Parts of petroleum are cancer causing.
Okay.
So those types of, when we test for petroleum, it actually breaks down into carbon fractions. It breaks down into PAHs, which are polynuclear aromatic hydrocarbons, because they're hydrocarbons. So we look at naphthalene, toluene, ethylbenzene, benzene.
Jesus.
And it is interesting when you look at the chemistry of it. You can actually tell if it's a heavier oil or a lighter oil. So heavier ones are like number 6 oil. You can almost walk on it because it's almost like tar when it's cold. Number 2 oil is your regular home heating oil. Then there's diesel. Then there's gasoline. Then there's jet fuel. There's all that stuff. So it's different breakdowns of petroleum.
Like viscosity? What is that about? Like, what is that about?
Yeah,
is that
but
what it is?
It's also how much you refine it.
Right. Okay.
Right. So, and there's heavier than 6 oil too.
Really?
When you're talking about it. Yeah.
Like you're saying, like literally walk on.
Yeah.
Like it's so dense, but it's still a liquid.
Correct.
Wow.
So 6 oil was big, probably about 50, 60 years ago. If you drive down the coast, if you're in New London, if you're in New Bedford, anything like that, you see these huge tanks that are right on the waterway.
Sure.
So these are million-gallon tanks, and those are petroleum storage. So those could be 6 oil that are sitting in there. So what they do is they'll ship crude oil like 6 over. Then we manufacture it and refine it here.
Got it.
And then then we can sell it to people. So when you hear of a manufactured gas plant, which is a separate regulated type facility that we deal with, we also need to look at other contaminants like cyanide, which was a huge contaminant of concern for manufactured gas plants back in the day. And with those sites, a lot of times there's contamination because you've got hundreds of feet of petroleum lines underneath the ground that if they leaked over time, you wouldn't know. And because it's 6 oil, it doesn't really leach that far. You wouldn't notice it because it's got, it's very thick.
Okay.
So you don't know until you open the ground. Is there
a commercial or military application for 6 oil as is?
They still used it as a heating source in large facilities.
Okay, so it still burns, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so someone made a machine, like a heater that would use it?
Correct, yeah.
Is it more efficient?
I don't think so, because I think that's why they got away from it. Because you actually need to heat up 6 oil just to get it viscous enough to be able to burn it.
Right, so then you're burning something else to heat it.
Right.
Okay.
So you're using a heating source to heat up so then you can heat your building.
Got it. Heat. Got it.
We know how things were back in the 50s and 60s. Not efficient.
Yeah. Less than desirable. Oh, man. So, you're educating me a lot here on oil. It seems like there might be better ways to, I don't know, produce cleaner energy. People always talk about hydrogen.
Mm-hmm.
And, we were just talking about jet fuel being kind of super volatile.
Yep.
Is that the same reason they don't work with hydrogen?
Hydrogen is a lot more difficult.
Okay.
If you think about jet fuel compared to gasoline and diesel, it's a lot more volatile. It's a little bit more difficult to harness, but obviously we can harness it in engines pretty effectively.
Yeah.
Hydrogen we can't really yet.
Okay.
So I remember being in college. One of my friends, he was a chemical engineer, and his big motivating factor was to find a way to harness hydrogen energy into an engine, so then we could use that. I haven't talked to him in a few months, but I know he was still working on it. It's really difficult.
Yeah, okay.
You're talking about something that is basically an explosion.
Got it.
And trying to harness it, and it's not long lasting. So, they do have a car coming out of, I think it's China, that has hydrogen cells that uses it, but that's a little bit different than kind of,
I think it's called the Nikola, isn't it?
It might be.
I think I saw something about that.
Yeah.
A little bit of competition.
Yeah. And I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
You can pretty much get that just by drawing air, which is what we all should be striving for.
So you're saying there's enough hydrogen in the air that a motor, if designed properly, just suck in clean air, take the hydrogen out of it, burn it, or combust it, whatever, same difference, turn it into energy, make the car move.
Yeah. Huh. And I think the way that they're doing it right now is they're using a hydrogen reaction to power a battery cell, pretty much.
Got it.
It's better than what we have.
Sure.
Is it the long-term solution? I don't think so.
Yeah. You're saying batteries are better than what we have? Or the hydrogen thing?
Yeah, the hydrogen reaction to power a battery is better than what we have. Like, my wife and I, we have Teslas. We just got Teslas.
Yeah.
That was a personal choice. It wasn't actually for green energy or anything. We travel a lot, so we were spending, I was spending alone about $400 a month in gas. She was probably pretty close. She was probably around, $250, $300 a month.
Yeah.
So even with our increased electricity bill, we're still going to be saving about $500 a month.
Okay.
It was a personal choice, and that's
Sure.
why we did it.
Sure.
But even with that, we're drawing our power from the grid.
Right.
And what's the grid getting power from? Most likely natural gas,
Yep.
coal plants, all of that. So it's not really...
It's not green.
Exactly. It's not really green. And I know we've talked about green energy.
Yeah.
How can we get off of oil? And I think if you can make the decision of going to an electric car with solar panels, so then you're actually harnessing the energy and personally
In real time.
doing it. Right.
Yeah.
And doing it personally for your own choice, and it makes sense for you and your family,
Yeah.
then that's a great decision. But while doing that, I don't think you can go around and tote around that you're saving the planet, because every time you go to the grocery store, you're buying everything that's plastic wrapped at the same time,
Shipped
which is
from
petroleum based.
who knows where, which is not shipped by battery.
Yeah.
Okay. Promise you that.
Right.
They are diesel belching motors that go all over the world.
Right. And then a lot of people have opinions on where we get our lithium. So it's
lithium, cobalt, dude. Like
exactly.
It's ugly. It's ugly.
So it's not a great way. But again, if you can do it for you and your family to save money every month, like if we can save $500 a month, then I think any family can.
Yeah.
And it works out well for us. And then if we go solar, then we might be saving $700-800 a month, because our electric bill will be so low.
Now we've talked about this in the stand before. The biggest issue with all the green energy sources is they're not recyclable.
Yeah, correct.
Right? So it creates this dead end of nothing. Like, what are you supposed to do? Like, how would you even call it green when the end line result is not a green situation?
Right.
You might produce energy using elements.
Right.
We should call it something different, right? We shouldn't call it like this zero carbon, green energy type business thing. It's just not.
Right.
It's just like agriculture. It's mislabeled.
Yeah.
It's mislabeled, dude. It's organic. Well, what the hell does that mean? It's green energy. Well, what the hell does that mean? Like,
right. You're still getting a metal car with plastic components, and wiring, and everything. Yeah, absolutely. Like my company, we do a lot of work with green companies, right? They're doing green energy. One of the projects that we're doing right now is actually redeveloping a 30-acre site in New Bedford, which will support offshore wind.
Oh yes, okay.
So it's right on the New Bedford Harbor. They've got 3 piers out there. We're on the land side helping out with the construction, because we had to take down some buildings. It was a former manufactured gas plant with the large million-gallon tanks out there. So, remediation. Also, it's New Bedford. New Bedford is well known for PCB contamination all over the place.
What's PCB?
Polychlorinated biphenyls.
What is that exactly? Or roughly, whatever you can tell me.
Yeah, it is a cancer-causing substance.
Okay.
It's regulated by EPA. They used it in a lot of glues.
Okay.
Every single school is littered with PCBs. If they're older schools, not now, because PCBs have been banned in the States.
Is what's that stuff they use? Oh my God. Not arsenic.
Asbestos?
Asbestos.
Yeah, asbestos is everywhere. We still get building materials with asbestos, even though it's banned in America to mine it. All of our building materials, well, I won't say all, but most of our building materials come from other countries, including Canada. We're still getting drywall with asbestos in it.
Really?
Yeah, so actually in Massachusetts, if your business is doing any type of renovation, like you got to take down drywall, you got to take walls down.
Sure.
You have to sample for asbestos because it's that prevalent.
Wow.
And we do a lot of renovation type work up there. A lot of our clients, they buy buildings or they lease buildings, and they have to renovate to facilitate their business.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of due diligence type work, testing for asbestos and lead paint, and all of that.
I remember you were briefly telling me about a metallic issue you had run into before.
Yeah.
Could you briefly talk about it without as many details?
Yeah.
So no one's implicated. But
right.
I just found that to be fascinating, but also not surprising.
Right. So, in my line of work, I get put into very awkward situations.
Tune in to part 2 to hear more. Do it! It gets good.